As a Star Wars fan, watching Star Wars Acolyte was the final nail in the coffin for the now Disney-owned property. There had been some bad movies and some even more forgettable ones, but with, Andor and Rogue One, even things like The Mandalorian Season 1 and 2, there was still a little bit of life left in the Star Wars property. That is, until The Acolyte dropped. Amidst claims of bigotry and racism, wild rap videos, and just general ignoring of good characters and storytelling, we all watched Star Wars breathe its last breath and fade away. So instead of just beating a dead horse, I decided to do something different. To show the people that claim that all the dissenters of the show are simply, bigots masking their hatred in constructive criticism, that maybe they're wrong. I mean, there were a lot of problems with this show. So, today, we're going to rewrite Star Wars Acolyte. Now, like any good rewrite, I'm going to try and use the raw materials I've been given. I'm not going to be making any huge character changes or major plot differences. I won't be ignoring the lore, maybe like the show did. I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm simply going to be taking the existing Star Wars Acolyte show and reworking it, streamlining it and fixing it as best I can. I think largely the show struggled with characters, pacing, and overall plot coherence, which I know kind of sounds like the whole show, and it sort of is. There were some good ideas, seeds of good ideas, but I think the overall execution of the project was lacking in a lot of ways. So without further ado, let's get into the rewrite of Star Wars Acolyte Season 1. Episode 1 opens on a hooded figure, Master Indara. As she walks through her town in the early morning light, it's quickly apparent that she is loved dearly by its inhabitants and has lived here for quite some time. She enters a noodle shop and is practically forced into a morning meal with a few of the villagers, only to glance up and see a hooded figure standing before the table. The mysterious figure challenges Master Indara, boldly, almost childishly, but the Jedi Knight refuses, amused by the teenage petulance. Without hesitation, the hooded figure grabs an innocent passerby and flings them violently onto the ground. Indara leaps up, and a fight ensues. They go hand to hand, the hooded figure struggling to hold their own against the Jedi Master. Despite the attacker's use of the Force, Indara draws her lightsaber, and with one fell swoop, cuts off the mysterious figure's left hand, dropping them to their knees and ripping off their mask. We don't see their face, but Indara looks shocked, even terrified at the identity of the attacker. When her young Jedi Knight partner, Yord, arrives at the scene of the crime, followed by a stream of villagers, he finds Indara dead, with a knife in her throat, and a pool of blood surrounding her. Nothing else remains. We now meet Sol, a Jedi of a gentler, quieter breed. He teaches younglings in the temple, a source of calm and wisdom for the little ones in their time of training. He's hurriedly summoned to a small meeting of the Jedi Council, called by Master Yoda. Something is wrong. Something has happened. A Jedi slain. I honestly don't really know what to do with Yoda here because this show kind of screwed up the whole timeline of the original series, but I felt like it was wrong to exclude him, so bear with me here because, if it was my choice, I wouldn't have messed with Master Yoda in the first place. It's revealed that DNA, or whatever the Star Wars equivalent of that would be, has been found at the scene of the crime belonging to an old Padawan of Sol's by the name of Osha. Sol claims that Osha didn't have the Force training or the temperament for such a crime, but as the Council presses him on another reason, he gets strangely quiet. It's decided that a group of Jedi will be sent to apprehend Osha, and Sol is able to convince them that because of his personal relationship to the girl, he should be the one to lead the mission. Yord, having been the only other Jedi on the planet when Indara attacked, also comes along. We cut now to a blurry montage of fire, screams, a quick flash of the mysterious figure from the opening driving a dagger into Indara's throat. Osha lurches awake. Breathing heavily, she looks down at her left hand, which to her surprise is still there. Osha gets up and joins her fellow crewmates, going about her daily duties. She operates as a mechanic, a mech-neck, aboard a Nemoidian freighter whose cargo and business is less than legal. Alarms begin to scream as a small fleet of Jedi fighters tear out of hyperspace, surrounding the freighter. The Nemoidian crew, panicking that their illegal cargo has been discovered, activate their deflector shields. Tensions quickly rise, and the Jedi begin to fire on the ship in an attempt to cripple it. And in the panic of the attack, she is thrown off her feet, hitting her head and falling unconscious into an escape. Moments later, a crew member enters it and launches the pod plummeting down to the surface of a nearby planet. The Jedi board the Nemoidian freighter to discover that Osha is nowhere to be found. But Yord, still eager to find the killer of Master Indara, encourages the Jedi to search the wreckage below. Meanwhile, Osha awakes, amidst fire and flame, bloody, bruised, and disoriented. She didn't want to run. She wasn't guilty. As she gets up, she hears shouts from outside, and unable to find her weapon or even her droid, she begins to flee through the wreckage. It's not long till she's cornered. Osha pleads ignorance, but Yord simply ignores her, blinded by righteous indignation. Only Sol holds him back, begging Osha to come with them quietly, without a fight. "I didn't kill her," cries Osha. Sol simply nods. "I know," which means there's only one other explanation. We cut away to the hooded figure from the episode's opening, struggling her way up a steep, rocky staircase, holding her injured left arm. As she reaches the top of it, she rips off her mask, revealing that though her hair is different, her face bloody and bruised, she looks exactly like Osha. A twin, her twin. May stumbles through a massive cave, its walls ribbed with pillars of an ancient structure. She falls to her knees, weeping before a figure at the far opening of the cave. He looks out at the ocean, not turning to acknowledge her presence. "You failed again, little one." May grimaces. "She took my hand." The man wheels round, grabbing her injured stump and squeezing it, his apprentice squirming in pain as he brings his masked face close to hers. Tears stream from May's eyes. "And you, my acolyte, will take everything from them." Episode 2 opens as May arrives back at her ship, stationed high on the cliffs of the ocean planet. There she meets Kamir, a young, shifty-looking man who has been sent to be her guide. May claims she doesn't need help, that she's better off alone. And what about your hand?" May stops, still not turning. "The master told me that you lost your hand. He told me a great many things." Kamir goes on to explain that he too has come to seek justice. And he too has been given a task, to serve the master, and in so doing, serve May. Olega, home to many, home to the Jedi and a small outpost which serves as the Jedi temple in these parts. The streets are alive with music and laughter and the barks of the marketplace. May watches from above, surveying the temple gates from a small balcony about 100 yards away. She's watching for something, waiting. Suddenly, there's a boom, and a passing speeder combusts to the sounds of screams from the locals. Kamir emerges from a nearby shop, looking at the pile of smoking rubble and wailing in grief as if he knew the person burning alive in the wreckage. Jedi rush from the gates, and a small child covered in the grime of the streets runs up and jams a piece of metal in the gate's closing mechanism. Alarms sound all around, and shouts of chaos emerge from the gates of the Jedi Temple. May waits a moment longer, and then takes advantage of the diversion, leaping with the strength of the Force and making her way across rooftops until dropping through a skylight into the temple. Using a small holomap, she makes her way through the many rooms, searching eagerly until she finds what she's looking for. A small bedchamber, but to her surprise, it's empty. Meanwhile, Osha is taken aboard the Jedi ship. She and Sol have explained that she had a twin sister back on her home planet, and that she was believed dead. Jackie, Yor's current Padawan, is wary of his strange behavior around the topic, but over the course of the journey begins to befriend Osha. Yord, on the other hand, is skeptical of everything. He doesn't believe the twins, he doesn't even really trust Sol, and he still watches Osha closely. Master Vernestra, Sol's superior, and the one put in charge of investigating the murders, calls, saying that a nearby Jedi temple has cited the appearance of someone matching Osha's description. "Which temple?" asks Sol. "What? Which temple?" "Olega." A look of doom falls across Sol's face. "I know who the killer is." Vernestra is reluctant that he takes action, but Sol convinces her, altering his course and heading directly for Olega. May returns to her ship, furious. Kamir meets up with her, and she explains that their intel on Master Torben must have been outdated. His quarters were empty, and not only that, they seemed uninhabited for quite some time. Kamir explains that there is a small Jedi retreat in the mountains of Olega where the Jedi sometimes go. Perhaps Torben is there. It's a strange response. Too knowledgeable for someone like Kamir, but She ignores it, and the two of them set out to find the base. They arrive to find that Torben has taken the bearish vow and is meditating in a perfectly undisturbed state. May unleashes a flurry of attacks, trying everything, but the force field still holds strong, unpenetrable, until she addresses him. Torben, you cannot escape this. I know you can hear me. His eyelids flutter a moment, and then open. By the time Sol and the other Jedi arrive, the temple and the planet is in chaos. The Jedi retreat has gone up in flames, and Master Torben found dead within, killed with a vial of poison. They shut down the city, placing Jedi at every exit. Jecki stops a mysterious figure, recognizing his face from the surveillance footage at the temple, and taking him captive. He begs for mercy, claiming that he is simply a pawn in a larger scheme, and agrees to lead the Jedi to May's ship, and eventually, almost randomly, as if drawn together like one magnet to another, May arrives, running into Osha on the outskirts of the camp. They look at each other for a moment before May darts off into the trees, and Osha begins to cry for help. A chase, and then a fight ensues. Sol is able to catch up to May, but she begins taking him on blow for blow. He deters her attacks, refusing to use force, refusing to go on the offensive, and though he defeats her, she uses force push, creating a cloud of smoke and escaping off into the wilderness. In the midst of the diversion, Kamir makes a dash for the cockpit of the ship, taking off before the Jedi can stop him, but not before Yord manages to throw a tracking fob on the outer hull of the escaping ship. Episode 3 opens 16 years earlier. We see a young Osha sitting under a yellow tree, reading a small book. It's tattered with age. In it are pictures from ages past, sketching of the Jedi and the great battles of old. An insect flutters in front of her, and she looks up to see it freeze in midair, quivering strangely. Osha whirls round and turns to see May, outstretched, holding the insect with the force. May, stop! You're hurting it! May pauses for a moment and then releases the creature, shrugging. It's only a bug. It's alive. There's a sound from the forest around them, a crack or a rustle in the bushes. The two girls gasp and pull together, holding each other's hands, their feud forgotten in a moment of fear. They pause, watching, waiting to see the source of the sound reveal itself. With a whoosh, a rush of air as if sound itself has been sucked out of the world around them, the girls are cast into a strange silence. Then a voice calls in echoing tones, as if shouted and whispered all at once. Come home. The two girls look at one another, and they rush off into the trees. Sol ducks out from behind his cover, watching the children as they go. He pulls out his holopad, and Master Indara appears in wavering blue light. I've located the inhabitants. They're different. Force users. Stronger than I've ever seen at that age. I don't understand. Sol shakes his head. Neither do I. Come back to the ship. We'll need to assess our options. May and Osha return home, and we get a glimpse of life on the planet Brendok. They live in a coven of witches. It's very clear early on that this society is a unique one, with a unique structure. No men, only women, with Osha and May as the only children. There are no families or unique familial ties, no special friendships or dedications. They are one, guided by the mother, Varosha Anasea. The children enter a large hall where they eat with the other sisters of the coven. Members approach periodically, smiling and congratulating them, asking them if they are ready for the night's ceremonies. May is excited, but Osha simply forces her smiles, looking more and more concerned with each congratulatory uttering. A Zabrak woman approaches. Hello, my darlings. How do you feel? Are you ready for tonight? She cups their faces in her hands, smiling. Her garb is unique from the other coven sisters, and even from the mother, but her relationship to them is unclear. She loves them. The Zabrak pulls 2 small vials from her belt and offers them to the children. Here, it's important that you sleep tonight. You'll be excited, perhaps even nervous, but this will help you sleep. and when we are ready, we will summon you from your dreams." On board the Jedi ship, a debate rages on. Up until now, Brendok was thought to be a mostly uninhabited planet, its small population mainly in the southern regions. But when they stopped here to resupply, they found nothing but ruins. Ruins and death. Something is wrong, and Sol and Indara agree that they must investigate further. They must visit the Coven and learn of their power and the nature of their purpose. Hours pass, and deep into the night, May and Osha awake. Their vision is blurry, and the remnants of the sleeping potion dull their senses. Voices, echoes, the smoke of incense all around. They are led outside to a wave of sound, the sound of chanting, a wild, wailing chant which drops and falls about them. The Coven surround the girls and begin the ceremony, a guttural, beastly chant. And as Mother Anastasia begins to lead it, whirling round her, green energy tears through the sky and clouds about her hands. A cry breaks out amongst the women as a handmaiden stumbles out into their midst. A ship has been sighted. A Jedi ship. The witches scatter, assuming defensive positions. "Hide the children," calls Mother Anastasia. "Protect the breeder." When the Jedi enter, they are met with an abrupt dismissal. They ask about the colony, the remnants of the city, but the witches simply dodge the question, ignoring them. Tensions slowly rise. Indara and Sol can sense that something is wrong. In the height of the exchange, Padawan Torben steps up. And who is that? Everyone turns to see Osha and May, peeking out from behind a pile of small rubble. "Who are the children?" asks Indara. "And how did they come to be in this place?" Mother Anastasia avoids the question again. She argues that the Jedi have no jurisdiction on this planet, unless, of course, the children are in danger. Sol argues this, and under pressure, Mother Anastasia agrees to allow the children to be tested and questioned by the Jedi in the morning. Coral tries to protest this decision, but she's ignored, and the children are sent off to the Jedi in the morning. Mother Anastasia tells them that the Jedi wish to take them away, and that they must fail the Force sensitivity tests on purpose. May does so successfully, but Osha has other plans. Over the course of the questioning, she begins to take a liking to the Jedi, specifically to Sol. He actually speaks to her, listens as she asks questions about the great wars of old, about the Jedi, and the legendary weapon of the Great Order. He even lets her hold it. When it comes to the Force sensitivity test, Osha reluctantly tries to fail it, but is soon discovered, and when she leaves the ship, Sol stops her, crouching down, and asks, "Do you want to leave this place, little one? Have they hurt you here?" We zoom in on Osha's face, but cut away before she can answer. Coral paces back and forth, panicking. The children have been discovered, and she is furious. Anastasia snaps, reminding Coral of her place, but a panicked devotion for her children overtakes her. "They are mine. I will not let them go." But her fury is interrupted by the sounds of approaching footsteps. The Jedi return, with orders from the Council and Master Venestra that the girls must be removed from the planet at once. But before anyone can stop her, the Zabrak witch leaps into action, grabbing Padawan Torben by the face with both hands. He lifts up into the air, eyes going black, and when he lands, he dashes towards the Jedi, lightsaber drawn. Despite the possession of the Padawan, the Coven doesn't stand a chance. Witch after witch is cut down by the Jedi, who have now assumed a defensive semicircle. May and Osha rush back through the caves, fleeing in fear. They reach their bedroom, stumbling in and knocking over a bookshelf in the process, its contents spilling all across the floor. In front of May lands the little black book. She picks it up, a strange look on her face, tears filling her eyes. "You brought them, didn't you?" "What? The Jedi! This is all your fault!" May begins to hit Osha with the book, and standing up, rushes out of the room and closes the door behind her, locking Osha in it. She grabs a lantern from the wall and holds it to the pages of the book until it begins to flame. Meanwhile, the Jedi are still fighting off the witches. Kalnaka, the Wookiee Jedi, has made his way back to the ship, and powering it up begins to fire from above. With air support, the Jedi take the advantage and begin to retreat toward the firing ship. But Sol Sol dashes back inside. He reaches the center of the base, the reactor room, to see Osha and May facing off with one another, standing atop a metal bridge. May uses the force, throwing Osha back, and with the room crumbling around them, the falling debris breaks the metal anchor loose, and the reactor falls, exploding in a ball of flame. He reaches out with the force, catching her before she falls and pulling her back to safety. He sits for a moment, looking off into the flaming wreckage. He calls for May. No answer. The whole base is collapsing around them now, and lifting Osha in his arms, Sol rushes back to the safety of the Jedi ship, leaving the flaming rubble of the Coven behind them. Covered in dust, in grime, and blood, May pulls herself from a pile of rubble and stumbles through the wreckage, quietly weeping. She calls for her mother, but no one answers. All that remains is fire and blood, the corpses of her sisters, piled amidst the rubble of her home. Episode 4 opens on the Jedi Council. Yord updates the members on the murders, reluctantly presenting the evidence of Osha's innocence, and explaining that they've tracked the assassin's ship to the planet Kofar. Sol reveals the connection of May and Osha to the events of Brendok those years ago, and while the files are presented, it's clear they don't understand the full details of what happened. The report covers only an attack and a fire, listing Osha as the sole survivor. Yoda, who is present from afar at the council, offers wisdom. He says that Osha and her sisters are twins in the Force, and with the strength of their abilities, share a bond that cannot be broken. A bond that can be of great use in tracking May. He agrees that she is dangerous, but demands that the girl be taken alive. The real danger is not the assassin, but the one who trained her. They must find her master. After the council is dismissed, Yoda speaks to Master Vernestra alone. He tells her that the old wrongs must be righted. Vernestra agrees, saying that it was her problem in the first place, and that she will assure the matter is taken care of. May, meanwhile, lands on Kofar, with Khmer in tow. They learn that the Wookiee Jedi has made a home far up in the mountain forests, and after collecting supplies from the town below, they begin their trek to find him. As they traipse through the wilderness, the two begin to bond, Khmer talking about how he met their mysterious master, how he was given a chance to rise above his humble beginnings, given power beyond imagination, a path to freedom, to no longer be shaped by the world, but to shape it. When he asks May what drew her to the hooded warrior, she simply brushes off the questions, saying it's a long story for another time. They travel through the woods for a day, and as the sun sets, Khmer suggests they make camp. But in the morning, when May awakes, he's gone. Sol takes a group of 5 Jedi, his Padawan Jeki, Yord, and, though reluctantly, Osha. They send a message ahead, alerting the Republic authorities on planet of their coming, and to prepare a unit of armed troops. May sits around a while longer, but as the early morning hours wane, she becomes anxious and concerned. So she sets off into the forest, still unsure if she's looking for the Jedi or her friend. Perhaps both. She begins to see signs of life, chopped trees, beaten paths, and finally, a large house hewn into the trunk of a massive tree. There is a noise from behind, and turning, she sees the Wookiee, holding a large pile of kindling. They stare at one another for a long moment, neither one daring to move, and the Wookiee croons cautiously at her. May shakes her head. Take out your weapon and fight. The Wookiee does nothing. Will you not strike me down, as you did those on Brendok? At this, he speaks. A mistake? You killed them. You killed them all. With that, May pulls a dagger from her belt, throwing one and then another at the Wookiee. Kalnaka simply pushes them aside, and as May charges him, her third dagger in her hand, Kalnaka raises his arm, thrusting her flying back with the force. May crashes into a tree, but gets up, shaking away the pain. Fight me. Fight me, May screams, but before she can attack again, a ship flies overhead. May retreats into the woods, and just behind her, Jedi and Republic forces swarm the scene. Kalnaka points them in the direction she fled, and the Jedi rush off into the forest, searching for her. Soldiers remain at the camp. Osha, meanwhile, begins to see strange things, visions of the past, the future, and the present all blending into one. As she gets closer to her sister, it seems their bond strengthens. She wanders into the woods, stumbling through her visions in the foliage all at once, until turning a corner, she feels a dagger on her throat and sees herself, May, staring at her. Osha confronts May, pleading with her to stop, telling her that if she just comes back with the Jedi, if she leads them to her master, then she'll go free. The two sisters argue back and forth, May, full of rage and abandonment, and Osha pleading innocence, the two of them heartbroken and confused. The sounds of shouts rise in the forest, and May holds still for a moment. At first, it sounds like soldiers, barking orders. But then the shouts turn to screams, to pain. May's face twists in fear, a darkness falling over it. He's here. The master arrives at Kalmaka's camp, cutting down soldier after soldier as if they're paper. He tosses them aside with force, and as Kalmaka draws his lightsaber, the two engage in combat. Kalmaka is stronger, but the master is faster. So much faster. And eventually, he disarms the Wookiee, and with a sweeping motion beheads the Jedi Knight. More soldiers charge in, the Jedi just behind them, and the master sends a rippling wave of force energy backwards, throwing soldiers in all directions. As the dust settles, the Jedi slowly approach, lightsabers drawn. The hooded, helmeted figure stands amidst the carnage, his arms covered in the blood of the slain. His lightsabers drawn, not green or yellow or blue, but the same crimson as the bloodied corpses around him. Soul looks down at the blade and back up at him. "What are you?" The figure halts. "I am your reckoning." With that, Episode 4 cuts to black. So that's going to be it for part 1 of my rewrite of Star Wars Acolyte Season 1. These videos take a lot of time to kind of write and produce, so thank you so much for your patience. Like I said, part 2 is going to be coming out this Sunday, so 2 more days we're going to have part 2, and you'll get kind of the finale of the season. And as always, let me know what you guys thought of my rewrite in the comments down below. Always looking for feedback, always looking to be a better writer. How would you have changed Star Wars Acolyte? And as always, keep reading, keep writing. Don't forget to check out part 2's video, which comes out this Sunday, and I will see you all there.